We're on mute now.
We're on mute now.
Good evening. The meeting of the Beaufort County Board of Education Academics Committee meeting for May 24, 2023. 5:00 p.m. at the District Educational Services Center, Conference Room E, and remote hybrid. So I was trying to be able to students. This meeting will be live streamed on the school board's YouTube channel. Requests for public comments, participation will be accepted between 3 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. by sending an email with your name, phone number, and topics to robin.kuchenberry@buford.k12.sc.us. You will receive a phone call during public comments where you will be able to speak and address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes on issues within the committee's domain. The forum will be limited to 15 minutes. The mission of the Beaufort County School District through a personalized learning approach will prepare graduates who compete and succeed in an ever-changing global society and career marketplace. The academics committee meeting is hereby called to order. Would you please stand for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, there's a correction to the agenda, Mr. Knapp. Madam Chair, that we approve the agenda with the removal of IS 35, instructional resources and materials. We will hear about that at a later date.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Discussion, Barry? Do we have any? Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The approval of the agenda for is approved.
We don't have public comments.
I need a motion for the approval of the April 20th, 23rd committee meeting.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. There's been a motion to approve the April 2023 committee meeting. It's unanimous. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Unanimous.
I got it. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to administrative regulation updates by Dr. Strauss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, Madam Chair and board members, I have with me members from our Instructional Services Division. I'd like to take a moment and conduct the introductions at this time, as we have new membership at the table, and it will allow us to be fluid in our presentation. To my immediate left, I have Karen Gilbert. As you're familiar, she is our Director of Career Technical Education. I have Karen McKinsey is joining us as well. She's our Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning. And joining us this evening is Dr. Christopher Johnston. He's our coordinator for medical and our med tech. And you'll hear a little more about that shortly as we get into our textbook adoptions. I do want to take a moment and give you the why to the administrative regulations, and I appreciate the adoption, the change onto the agenda for this evening. As we are going through our administrative regulations, we're trying to be contemporary to the changes that are coming from legislation. So what you'll be hearing is a similar clause being added to many of our ARs, administrative regulations that are compliant with South Carolina law. And one of our administrative regulations is also with regard to graduation, as you are familiar with the personal finance course being added. So you'll hear about those updates as well. For the administrative regulations this evening, Mrs. Gilbert and Ms. McKinsey will be going forward and presenting, and we could start with instructional services at admin reg 1. And in your packet, you will have the edited version. Edits will be in red. Your second version, all in black, is the update one, so you can see what the final document would look like. So you technically have 2 of each.
If you're looking at IS1, that clause that Dr. Stratus was discussing that we put into all of them, just to make it a cleaner process and more consistent across the board, is the administrative regulation establishes the superintendent's expectations for instruction. And then we wrote out Beaufort County School District for that first time. It's just more proper to do so. Our basic change on IS 1, which is instructional goals and learning objectives, falls under section 2. And what we put in there was teachers must follow guidelines and regulations determined by the state of South Carolina. And this includes, but it's not really limited to, but those provisos, those statutes, those regulations that the state is pushing out to us. So we wanted to make sure that we had that in there. Specifically, if you remember the proviso that came out this year, so we wanted to make sure we had something in an administrative regulation.
And that's in that
accountable to
reference.
that.
That reference to Route 19.93, which is written out of Finance Committee, and us to recognize that 19.93 is now being embedded into legislation 3728.
Correct, the transparency.
Yes, family transparency act. Oh, it's final signatures. Thank you.
And if we look at IS 36 would be our next one. Again, you're going to see that same common language that we added to the top of IS 36. Okay, rather than it to establish, we changed it to the administrative regulation establishes. And we wrote out Beaufort County School District so that it's more of a proper document. If you look at section 3, the way that the state typically used to do it prior to COVID was they would hold caravans around the state. During that time period, they did not do that. So they have gone back to that. So those are why we put these in. Beaufort County School District will notify parents in the community of all state adoptions and locations for those public review. During that time period, we were trying really hard to provide those things ourselves. And now the state is back providing them for the state and the community. So we just want to make sure we noted that. Also, in section 2, we put Beaufort County School District Board approved textbook adoption, because somehow that word wasn't in there. And of course, all of our textbooks are board approved before we submit those to the state.
And just to share the process of that parent notification that for our school system goes through communications.
Yes.
There is an all users communication that goes out through our Candace Bruder and communications.
Yes, and that goes to all parents and all employees in the district. And then the last thing we did is we added a statement that we used to tie ourselves into May, June through April. But the state is doing it differently now. And what they will do is at the beginning of the year, they'll say, okay, these books we're going to fund. These we're going to put over here on this list, and we may or we may not. We don't want to miss out on those mays and may not, if they come out later and say, hey, guess what? We're going to fund it now, which is what they did, one that we're going to share with you this evening. So they just recently said, hey, by the way, we'll fund this now. So we wanted to make sure that we got Beaufort County School District in on that as quick as possible. So we just added that little statement of giving ourselves a 30-day window to follow that, so that we make sure we don't miss out on that state funded materials for our schools. And then down at the very bottom, we did put a little notation of Dr. Stratus's title where it says Chief Instructional Officer. We wanted to make sure that that is also denoted as CISO. Because that's how it is referred to throughout the document. So those are the changes in 36.
And with regard to the books of potential funding, we have brought forward to the board in the past, books that you approved, pending funding at the state. So I just wanted to share that as well, so we can be aligned with that practice at our administrative regulation. Nine.
49. There really weren't many changes, but we wanted to make sure we're systematically going through all of them to make sure they're clean, they're neat, and they really embody the spirit of what we're trying to do as a school district moving forward. On this one. Okay, on this one, it is graduation requirements and diplomas. And it already had that statement because we did change that last year. So it had that statement in section 1. But in section 2, we have a change from the state. And that change, of course, is personal finance. And that's going to fall under Ms. Gilbert's house in CTE. And so we made that addition. If you'll notice, it's right below social studies listed as subject, personal finance, and it's a 0.5 course. So we denoted that. And then what the states asked us to do is not change the number of units required for graduation, but instead to take that 0.5 away from electives and make sure that we provide that personal finance to our students. And you'll note also on page 4 and 49, under section 5, it's also noted again there for adult education because that is a state requirement for graduation in our state. So we want to make sure we get all areas.
Mrs. Gordon, Madam Chair, and Ms. McKenzie, if I may call to one correction. The seals of distinction that is on page 5, the state just updated for the upcoming year, so our apologies. And the only change for the seals of distinction effective for next school year is under the career and technical education. Instead of a grade point average of 2.5 or higher, students will need to earn a 3-point higher.
That just came
Higher.
out.
It just came out. Yes, ma'am. So I'm glad we
So
called
we're
that.
gonna have to cross that out.
We'll
Chair, would you
make
accept that?
sure with the updated that goes to the board, we will make sure that we'll copy and paste the chart that was just released. And the seals of distinction are an excellent opportunity for students to, when they graduate, to earn just that extra a distinction, and there's different categories. This came out a couple of years ago, and I was glad to see that career and tech ed was also included. So if a student is a career and tech ed completer with a credential, and then they were saying, well, they had to also have a 2.5 GPA, but they wanted to elevate that a little bit. So it'll now be moving forward to 3.0. So we'll make sure to copy and paste that hot off the press correction. Exactly, and I think that's what my state was going.
Now, Carlton's hands up.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Dallas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My internet sort of blinked a few moments while Ms. Gilbert was speaking. Were any of the standards lowered?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Dallas.
And I will move on to IS 53, teaching about controversial issues. In section 1, we added that same statement that we're putting to all of our administrative regulations. The administrative regulation establishes, and we also wrote out Beaufort County School District begins. In section 2, We added the statement that all examinations of controversial issues must align with the regulations and provisos of the state of South Carolina. That again goes back to what Dr. Stratus was discussing earlier with 1.93. That one came through finance at the beginning of the school year. So this way we have that already handled in our regulation. For anything further, the statements to send our way. Section 3. We also made an addition there. Teachers must follow guidelines, provisos, and regulations determined by the state of South Carolina. That is for the same thing. And the way we handle that process is as soon as that proviso comes to us, we get that out to all schools and all teachers to ensure that they are following that state regulation.
We even shared as of today, we decided to maybe 728 little principals in the school district. That went out of there as part of our training.
Definitely try to keep them aware, and it changes quite rapidly sometimes. In section 4, we changed, we added number 1. We changed that from appropriateness of the course to alignment with state standards for the course. We felt like that was more along the lines of where Beaufort County wanted to be, is following the state standards and following the state language on that. We did leave appropriateness for maturity of the students, because that's something we need to do, is make sure we're reaching the true needs of each student at their developmental level. Number 3, approach to instruction, we changed to instructional strategy being used for teaching content. B was also changed in this one. In addition there, the principal will ensure an option is available for parents to opt their student out of the lesson. And we felt that that was needed so that parents, obviously, as the first teacher of their students, had that option to opt their student out of any controversial teaching that they did not want their student to be involved in. And those are the administrative regulations that we have for you this evening.
Madam Chair, would you like us to go forward, or do you want, is there any discussion on these administrative regulations?
I'm gonna call for discussion, questions at this time. Board members.
Madam Chair, I like to, whenever the appropriate time for a visitor to pose a question, I like to do so, ma'am.
Go ahead, Mr. Dallas, thank you.
Okay, 2 things. Has there been any analysis of what the additional cost of the public school districts having to perform services for non-public school students? Because I had a conversation with some of my political legislative friends, and so I'm just wondering if there's been any analysis of that. Because sometimes we are criticized for our administrative burden, and a lot of those things are generated by legislative actions. So that's just something for consideration going forward in terms of being able to help our elected officials understand what financial burdens they're creating. The second one, and I don't know if you can see this. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
You can see it?
It's the Constitution of the United States.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And I saw that civics is a half of a credit. I would just pose politely, is there any benefit to, as part of being successful in that civics course, that every student is given a hard copy of the U.S. Constitution for their reference going through life? And I think that might be beneficial to them long term. And it could be signed by the governor or the superintendent or whomever. But I think that would be beneficial to help people appreciate the great country that we have. Thank you.
The Constitution.
Yeah, so
Thank you, Mr. Dallas. Any more questions from board members? Okay, thank you. With that being said, We'll move forward with Dr. Stiles.
So with that, Mrs. Cushenberry, if we can cross over to the PowerPoint presentation. And this evening, we're bringing forward textbook information and to share some updated information on MedTech on a book which you had prior approved, but really we want to boast a little bit on a unique class, or actually for a series of medical classes that are middle students. So with that, Mrs.
Mary, you have to speak up just a little bit.
Yes, ma'am. So with that, Mrs. McKenzie, are you going to start your textbook presentation and then Mrs.
Absolutely.
Please do. Thank you.
So of course, our textbook selection is based on standards-based instructional support for our curriculum. And that is based on IS 36, which we just did a few minor changes to. Modernized textbook selection. So our textbooks can be digital, they can be hardbound copies, they can be bundles of both. Which a lot of times that's what our teachers like. Ordering any supplemental or additional materials other than this would cause us to come back to the board for further approval. I think we did that last time we were in this room. The State Board of Education Regulation 4370 really drives our adoption process. Once we have something, a book picked here at our district level, once it is approved by our board, once we've selected it, then it's approved by our board. It goes back to the State Department. As soon as they place that into the Destiny system, which is where we order our books from, then our schools can begin to order the books. And just sharing what was current policy on IS 36 regulation. Our district textbook coordinator is Stacy Fleetland. And she does a great job of getting information out to schools in a very timely manner. One of the ones we're bringing forward with the biology is one of the ones they shelved for funding. So as soon as that came out, she had it out within 10 minutes of getting it from the state, just wanting to make sure that our schools had that option. Just a phenomenal job. And what that includes is grade levels, content, information, a list of the publishers that the state's already approved for us to look at. Dates, times and locations of the textbook caravan, and a timeline for final selections.
And she keeps copies of all communications,
All of them.
all of them.
Ours,
File.
yes. Our schools have to get a consensus. So, for example, we have 6 high schools, so if we're adopting an I-12 book, we need a consensus from those 6 schools. We send out a form, it's IS 36E1, and what that does is it allows the teachers to review the materials in a group of teachers that don't have content. And then they sign off which one they have selected as the book they would use in the classroom. Our public reviews are now being held in Columbia for this particular adoption that we're talking about this evening. We were fortunate to have some of our teachers able to travel there to be part of that review material. We also do compile that information and bring it forth to the board. So that's IS 36. So biology, and I will say before I start, I'm really excited about this. As you know, we have new biology standards. We have new science standards in place. Biology is one of our end of course examination courses, and they did not fund the textbooks initially. So that kind of put some angst in some of my biology teachers. So as soon as they said, hey, we are going to fund those, Beaufort County jumped on it. Biology 1, our teachers have selected Inspire Science, which is biology through McGraw-Hill. Biology 1 honors. Our teachers have also selected Inspire Science, which is biology through McGraw-Hill. Biology 2, our teachers have selected South Carolina Miller and Levine, biology by Savas Learning. AP biology, and I'm going to tell y'all this was an iffy one because our teachers really went back and forth on this one, but they finally made their decision, and they have chose to use biology for the AP course, and that's by Bedford, Freeman, and Worth. So those are the 4 selections that our teachers would like approval on moving forward. Turn it.
We are finished in the section for biology. Yes, close. Thank you. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, unless we have questions at this time, Mrs. Middleton or any other board member. Okay, so we could have a recommendation if there are no questions on the table.
Yes, I would like to make a motion, Madam Chair. I recommend that the academic committee takes the textbook recommendation to the full board on June 13th, 2023. Let's not go back. June 13th, 2023.
I'm making sure. everybody-
Yeah, yeah. Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that Mr. Name?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Name.
and thank you, board members.
Can't vote. Any discussion? No discussion. It's been moved and second that we take the recommendation to the full board on June 13th. Thank you. Vote. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Nay didn't vote.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Nay. That's 3-0.
Yes, it is greatly appreciated, Madam Chair, and board members. So with that, our next slide, and I will have Mrs. Gilbert go forward, is an update on MedTech. We'd like to bring some information for how Buford is spearheading some initiatives actually in the state. Mrs. Gilbert?
Ms. Franklin, Madam Chair and board members, we're so excited that if any of us go on any of our roads in northern part of the county or southern part of the county, you're gonna pass a hospital, you're gonna pass a doctor's office, you're gonna pass a lot of healthcare related facilities. It's one of our largest employers here in the county. And so for career and technical education, labor market demand drives a lot of what we offer as well. So when Dr. Stratus was very instrumental in bringing forth a major grant, it's called MedTech 7. And it's under what's called an MSAP grant. It's a federal grant. It really is looking for access for our students to be able to take high demand jobs and prepare for them. So I think they were very strategic in that of the 7 schools, they did 2 clusters. The Well Branch cluster, we are working with the schools there to promote more IT, cybersecurity, in the different levels. And also they're incorporating some arts integration with that so that as students are learning about the different software programs, how to think critically with computers, then they're saying, well, what's the art component for that? Same thing with on the medical side, in promoting career awareness, as well as training. Students can graduate with a certification in basic life support, CPR, first aid. At the Bluffton cluster, we have at the high school level some different pathways that students can take for that. And so we're excited to have Dr. Johnston on board. He's going to share a little bit about his background and where he's going to be able to bring through the grant some added expertise and support for our teachers as we continue to expand opportunities for our kids to want to pursue a medical field. I think I've shared with the board in prior meetings that we have a great partnership now with Buford Memorial Hospital. They've been they have a program called PATH, People Achieving Their Highest. And we're looking at duplicating that south of in the southern part of the county with Tenet Health and Encompass. So at this time, I can make the announcement. We're excited that starting next year, we're going to pilot a middle school healthcare, just an introduction to the careers, get students interested in what that is. It will, it's a career and tech ed course, so it's state approved. So it's already gone through that vetting process at the state level. And then you want to share a little bit about your background and maybe a little bit about the vision for this course with Dr. Brown at Ladies Island Middle School and potentially Buford Middle School as well.
Sure. So one, I'm excited to be here. Started last Monday, so 10 days into the job, or 7 days into the job. So a little bit about my background. I worked clinically as an athletic trainer for multiple years before going back to get my PhD. Spent the last several years as an educator on the master's level at High Point University, teaching in their graduate curriculum for healthcare. So really excited to be here and take on the role as medical curriculum specialist for Tech 7 in our schools, and really excited to help implement the courses at the middle school level. I think it's really important with this intro to health professions class to introduce what these health professions are, what are the options that are out there, what do these careers look like, and what are the requirements to get you where you want to be. And that's how we're starting out with this clusters.
Now, this would be a second course. The prior course is medical detectives. Right,
Right.
yeah, so I wanted to share that.
Yeah.
That's right, you did. You did a great job with that. I remember that.
So this will be the second course at the middle school, and you'll also right into the high schools in our medical program, so it's just not specifically at the middle school. But we just wanted to tout that now we have 2 full courses at the middle school, which I think is phenomenal. It's,
Be a great segue for the students as they're introduced into Beaufort High School.
Can't wait to see the data.
Yes.
I'm sure Beaufort Memorial wants some of that as well, because our hope is that we have students that with enough interest to stay with the field and actually remain within Beaufort County to serve our community. So that is the crux of this.
If I may, Dr. Strauss, part of Beaufort Memorial's initiative is that if students graduate from our school district and they want to work for Beaufort Memorial and haven't had some of the foundational skills, they're going to pay while they're working for them to then go on to the College of Low Country or USCB and work toward their nursing license, radiation, tech. So it's going to be a lot of support out there to continue with this healthcare focus.
Thank you all. That is an amazing partnership. That is amazing. Thank you for all the hard work.
Team effort. Okay, so Madam Chair, that really is a quick summary of the course. We've gone through the administrative regulation, which was part of the presentation. We actually did adopt those documents first. We went through the technology, the textbook component. And if you look at page 6, it just gives you a quick thing on next steps. We're following the board approval that we were going to put the orders in, but we will not do that until the June 13th board meeting, results of that meeting. So we want to let you know the next steps as well. And that would conclude our presentation for academic committee for today.
I have some questions. In terms of the, I noticed that y'all have this in elementary school, which I will have in the other elementary schools. What's the theory behind that?
In regard to.
Yeah,
It's,
I'm talking about the med tech program. Yeah, you have the program, branch.
yeah,
But then also in the Beaufort cluster, you don't have it at the elementary school, nor at the Health Elementary School. I'm just wondering what's the rationale behind that?
actually, I think you brought that up prior, when we first had the onset of the grant. And there were a few items. One was Mossy Oaks is the elementary school, the feeder program. As well as Ladies Island is another middle school. And then we started looking at the operational component of the development of the budget and adding more schools. The opportunity of having FTEs, meaning teacher units, kept getting thinner and thinner. So at this time and place, our FTEs are actually at the middle school. We're building capacity with regard to all teachers in the district. We have actually allowed all teachers who are interested for trainings to trainings. So we haven't limited access on what we're building the capacity of our educators. But when it came for the designing and operation of the grant itself, it was actually a fiscal component that we didn't keep adding more and more schools to it, sir.
And also, if I may add, Ladies Island Middle School MedTech students would feed into the program at Beaufort High School, which is a continuation processes rather than you start at the elementary, then by the time you get to the middle school, those kids are gone.
And our students from St. Helena, as well as Ladies Island Elementary, feed into Ladies Island Middle. So.
So they will eventually
Yes,
get
ma'am.
that.
Yes, ma'am. The opportunities to lie there for our students.
Right, I mean,
So fiscal is also a component.
Yes, ma'am.
We have to pay for teachers, we have to pay for equipment, and budget is always an item. But as Ms. Middleton said, I'm really happy to see this. I wasn't here when the board first started with this discussion, but to see where we are with the middle and high schools that are able to participate. And as you say, go on into our communities and have a career in this field, so.
That would be the goal.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
and however, I do understand what you're saying, but the reason why I'm asking this is because we actually were at the middle school meetings, SIC meeting last night,
Mhm.
and we're getting excited and we're talking about this MedTech 7 coming in, and then it's a process putting this in and going through this. And so I know that St. Helena Elementary School is a leader in me, I believe. Later on middle elementary school is a leader in me as well. And so I'm just wondering, how are we transferring these programs from going from the leader in me program to this program? And then I look over here and I see Branch and I see Mossy Oaks. So my thing is that though that's a consistent basis built up from elementary to high school. And I'm just wondering, I want to make sure that all our kids are getting the same fair shot. And in terms of that build up to get there and being and okay, well, we've already coming from Mossy Oaks, you already have some type of introduction into it. So you know exactly what to do getting into middle school and taking those actual those courses that you're actually offering versus coming from St. Helena. You won't, because now you have to get kind of acclimated to it. So that's my point of asking, and to understand, is there what is there a distinctive different in terms of the program has it being offered from elementary to middle? Is there a buildup, or is there training at that level? Is it high intensiveness? That's
If the question is the opportunity for our students, for all students, if they feed into the middle school, in this case, Ladies Alma Middle School, that opportunity for exposure to the grant component does lie there. At the elementary school, the one thing that they've had is the opportunity of the arts integration. We haven't done the technology or the medical component at the elementary. However, Arts Now, or being an ABC school, it's an arts integrated school, and Ladies Island has done a very strong job for that. Our division does support that should the school want to be an arts integrated school. That is an option that we have never said no to a school, right? And that is the component of this grant. At the elementary is more of the arts integrated component. And in this case, we've collaborated with all our ABC schools. We haven't had the expert here and the experts in the room regarding that, but we've collaborated with all our ABC schools through the grant to also give them the opportunity of Arts Now and integrated lesson plans. And all we need to have is, if that's an interest at the school, we have ways of making that happen. But that's a decision from the school leadership, but that opportunity from our division does exist for any school outside of the grant at the elementary level. Any, we've not said no to any.
Oh, no, I know that I've not fathomed that I had to say no, because I know that this came in after. I know St. Helena, for say, was a leadership leader in the school prior to that. And I know that there are some dollars in there looking for some results as well for putting that money in there. But it's just moving forward when we start doing things like that. I'm looking now for when we buy into these programs, when we get into stuff as this right here, I'm looking for me personally, I'm looking for consistency, and I'm looking for data to show that we're getting bang for our buck. We buy into these things, and it's actually going to be fruit. We can see the fruits of the labor of these programs. Because I'm just concerned that simultaneously throughout the district that we may have our menu may be too large. And so I think that the key thing is to master what we have on our menu and see where the fruits of our labor is coming from for what we currently have on the menu.
We're
That makes
actually
sense.
held to have to conduct program evaluation on the impact of the grant within the community. And that is submitted annually, and actually it's a mid-year review as well.
Right.
So we're actually held to that by federal government, and then within our program itself, we monitor the outcome. And some of the monitoring is upbeat data, student enrollment. Okay, which is a key one for us, and actually monitor to see if there's a shift in climate in the campus from that of the adults as well as the students. And those indicators are grades, attendance, and discipline. And I could share that just an informal review has demonstrated a positive impact within the 7 schools that we have been part of the, and I'm gonna say NSAP because of the federal grant, but out of the MedTech grant, we have had a long-term.
Madam Chair and Dr. Stratus. Is that okay? So I'm so glad you brought up about leader, Mr. Smith, because as we've been meeting with the people at Memorial Hospital as to how the partnership would work, we hear all the time about employability skills, soft skills. Obviously, whether you're doctors, nurses, or anywhere in the hospital working together as teams, and so they're always asking us, what are we doing for those employability skills? So I think with CUSA and St. Helena and Ladies Island L, now with solid leader in these schools, then as they feed into Ladies Island Middle School in this pursuing this medical pathway, I think that's gonna help give them a leg up because they'll have been introduced to some of those good leadership traits. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's what the employers are asking for. So I think that can maybe be a tie-in if they decide they wanna work with some of the teachers over at Ladies Island Middle School as they start to think about maybe moving into a medical field.
Madam Chair, Mr. Dallas sent a chat because he's having problems with his internet. So he wanted me to ask the question, when will the CTE MedTech 7 and cybersecurity be available on the 278 corridor? This is a positive. They've created demand for an excellent program.
May I, madam, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Cushingberry. You said it much better than I will ever be able to say it in my Eastern North Carolina dialect, but I think one of the it truly is a situation of what you're bringing to the entire district is really in high demand. And I'm wondering if there might be benefit to having a district-wide strategic review of where the jobs are going to be over the next 10 to 12 years. And then the second leg of that review would be how would we ensure that each student in each cluster or geographical area has access to where the jobs are going to be, that type of curriculum. I know from conversations I've had recently in Columbia, the University of South Carolina is going forward very strongly on advanced manufacturing and research. With the Jasper Ocean Terminal, a lot of CTE jobs are coming. I know Hilton Head Hospital is really hurting for talent and human resources that can fill some of their open jobs. And so I guess just, you know, and I'm not being critical of where we are now, because I think you are managing what resources you have very effectively. But I'm thinking, should this really be a local school decision? If we want every student to be consistently have access to that. And I know that's not the curriculum decision. That may be a conversation for the larger school board to discuss at some point. So in essence, thank you for what the academic committee is doing, Madam Chair, and the others. And I'll see if I can stand down and maintain internet connection. Thank you, Ms. Cushingberry, also.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes.
That the, what Mr. Smith as well as Mr. Dallas has brought forward has been conversation at board meetings in the past. Through our division, as I shared with Mrs. Smith, we have open access to many of the schools on the 278 corridor. to many of the technological Z space. So Z space was purchased for our schools, through our division, and we worked with semester funding. I was able to get Z space in predominant amount of some of our other schools. South of Broad, the students would never have that opportunity because this grant is not South of Broad. So again, our students north of Broad would have a greater opportunity of having exposure to some of the technological aspects that were purchased from this amount of the grant. Because again, this was a $12.5 million grant to the system. So that's a significant contribution to the system. When we look at visual bodies, which is something, again, for your department, your hard work, we've been able to put some more visual, technological, I don't know how to explain that. It's a table, but for anatomy, you're probably familiar with it. Anatomy and physiology, my vision was that you take an anatomy and physiology class, which we call A&P, that the students not only gonna see it in the textbook, they could see the visual body in a larger text, as well as putting in larger screens in the classroom. So that teacher has that teaching screen, they have that additional screen that we put in and a visual body electronic item in the room. We have tried to do that south and north of Broad, because we realize from the voice of our board prior. I greatly appreciate the approach that the board may look into, because our goal is to get as much as we can to build programs for our schools and develop our educators to support us. You can have all the programs, but if you don't have the people. So that's our goal, so that we can give our children opportunities. So I appreciate commentary from both of them and your students.
Any more discussion?
I was gonna make a little comment that Mr. Dallas is Mr. Dallas still on?
He's still on.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mr. Dallas, it sounded like Beaufort Memorial Hospital they came to the table. Did they not come to the table?
So yes, sir, it's been really a partnership or meetings in 2 years in the works. But we also are in the process of working with Tenet Health and Encompass Health, which have a lot of their facilities in the southern part. So Mr. Dallas, with the great career event that everyone attended and.
Actually, I'm throwing a shit. I was just saying that actually when Beaufort Memorial came to the table, I'm not waiting for help there to come to the table too. They need to bring some money.
Yeah,
They might get it on 278. Because all that money they got, if they bring some money, Mr. Dallas, to the table, then we can get it up to 278. I'm sure you have the money that you need to get that program over there, because
Well, if I may, Madam Chair, so just for patience, we
I apologize.
we have great working partnerships with our folks there as well, and they have reached out, and as Mr. Dallas said, they or everyone is hurting for healthcare workers now, and so through Career and Tech Ed, we have sports medicine, we have intro to healthcare, we have the certified nursing assistant at ACE and at May River, Bluffton, with as we look toward our 5, 10-year, 15, 20-year plan for what Career Tech Ed is going to look like in the future, with the greatly appreciate the board's support and what a potential referendum might bring, then that will lend itself to more opportunities and options for kids. But we've got a good start, as Mr. Dallas said, and there's certainly room to continue to grow. But eventually, we'll have a seamless process of these high-powered occupations to ultimately, when kids graduate, we want to make sure they have a place to go to work and further their education.
Gotcha. And I just wanted to kind of just be throwing it out there, but also what I wanted to say was true as well, is that I agree with the chair and Mrs. Angela, I mean Ms. Middleton. I think this is definitely in terms of working with this MedTech reason why I believe I'm believing in this and buying into it is because having these positions in this county is very critical right now. And to understand if you have anything major with you need to have a major artery hit or something. Beaufort Memorial Hospital, we don't even have a trauma hospital. You have to go within 30 minutes away by plane or so the more we build up I think that this will be so. That's what I want to show a lot with so. I believe, I agree with them, both that we are moving in the right direction.
Can I just add, just sort of refine my point, if I may? Okay, all right. So,
We can hear you.
you can?
She's just playing
I'm
with
playing
you.
with you. Go ahead.
Okay. My point actually, the real core point I was trying to subtly make is I don't think we should be fighting Buford over 278 Carter over 12.5 million. I think the issue is bigger. And so that is why I was recommending a high-level strategic review of within this county and the surrounding counties where our students might matriculate and work. What is the demand for jobs? And then that creates the curriculum, or not creates, informs the curriculum and, prepares those students wherever they are to be able to fulfill those jobs. And then lastly, to my colleague's point, I think 49.5% of the income for the county of Beaufort.
You went out.
We lost you. Let me know if he comes back in. I love the discussion. Any more discussion?
You might check with Mr. Nay, he has not raised his hand up.
Because I can't see him.
You might check with him.
No discussion. Thank you.
Nay?
He's in no discussion.
Okay,
I'm good.
thank you, Mr. Nay, appreciate you.
Madam Chair to share, the Magnet Schools Assistance Program is funded to the federal government. Yes, I just.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion?
Not at the time. I made these people work hard today. They had a principal retreat from 8 o'clock this morning.
What's the next item?
Future topics, which
So we don't need to recommend approval to take anything to the.
You just did the textbook.
That's awesome. Trying to check this. Any discussion items for the future? And before I forget, welcome.
Thank you.
Johnston, welcome.
So Madam Chair, I have a question about IS 35, since we took it off the agenda, when do you all think that, because I know the governor is supposed to get back to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. One point where it was May 26th,
Okay.
but we are monitoring very closely.
Okay.
So we have that.
So legislation to be passed.
Yes, so that, and so once that happens, then we could bring it back to the table.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other topics for discussion? Mr. Nay? Do you have a discussionable item?
I do not. Thank you for asking.
The next thing is our next meeting. It would be scheduled for June 28th. Is that fine?
We have a instructional services retreat scheduled that day, so depending on the time, it would be 5 o'clock. You could do that.
I have a question. We're doing 5 o'clock. Is that good for you? And Mr. Nay, I think that was still good for you. So,
Yeah, he's coming.
Yes, it's still good for me. We can actually go a little bit earlier now if you'd like, because my private students were seniors and they are moving on, so I'm not having private students over the summer.
thank you. So.
5 o'clock is still good. Ms. Middleton still needs 5 o'clock because she still doesn't get off till 4:30.
Oh, okay, sure, no worries. I'm just saying I can go earlier if anybody would like to.
Yes, okay. It's 5 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
So you are to take it to.
No.
Not really here, though. 5 o'clock.
Yes,
5
ma'am.
o'clock? 5 o'clock. That's fine. Thank you. Okay. So the only item, and looks like we don't have one, is item. So did we take that off to go to the May when?
And I can't speak for what happens at the governor level, but the language was that they were going to revisit to close by the 26th, but again, we can't, I can't.
Oh, I
We're
understand.
keeping an eye, but we will have additional administrative regulations coming forward. We are going through every regulation. So, coming forward again in June. Our goal is this way we can get everything through to the board. So when we have a principal meeting on July 26th, all updated administrative regulations through our division will be presented to the principals as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
Okay, it has been, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody. Appreciate your efforts.
Thank you so much.